Should Christians celebrate Halloween? That's what we're talking about today on the To Be the Church podcast. Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it looks like to truly be the church in today's culture. How you doing, guys?
I'm doing I'm doing well. Yeah,
I'm doing pretty good.
Nice. It is candy season.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And we got a question about Halloween. So let's jump right in. Hey guys, I come from a very conservative background where anything related to Halloween is deemed as a sin. Coming out of that background, I met many Christians that celebrate Halloween or are simply indifferent to it. So my question is, should Christians celebrate Halloween? Does it come down to personal conviction, or are there biblical principles that point one way or another? Thank you.
So Ben, why don't you lay it down for us here?
Why? So you guys can tag team against me?
That's what we're hoping for. Depends on where you go.
Did you ever see the? Did you see the Halloween thing when you were a kid? The movie or there was like a documentary of sorts that, when my parents got the Christian bookstore in Oregon, like when I was like in 6th grade, I think they bought it and owned it for a few years, and there was like this movie on kind of Halloween, the history of it and everything, and they watched it, and it's like we didn't do any trick or treating after that for like several years. Did you guys see anything like that growing up?
I don't remember that, but we didn't ever trick or treat as a kid. I think I would love to talk to this person, which I can't. But like, what do they mean by celebrate? What do people mean by celebrate when you say celebrate Halloween? What my family does, we make a big deal out of the Reformation because the Reformation Day is the same day. My son Marty was born in the fall of the year, the 500th anniversary of Reformation. We named him after Martin Luther.
Is it hard for you being such a nerd?
Every time I mention that about Marty's name, he always is like, oh, that's really nerdy.
It's not nerdy at all. I love Marty's name.
But
I love Marty's name too. It's not Marty's name.
And I love
nerdy.
the child that is
great.
named Marty. Yeah.
So we emphasize that a lot around this time, but we also will let our kids around our street dress up in costumes and get candy,
like witches and stuff like that.
Really satanic stuff. Yeah. I think there's a way to do that, the trick-or-treating part, without participating or celebrating in anything that would be like we keep our kids away from any of the scary death, gore, which even if there's like houses like that, if they're out, we're not going to go to those houses. We're just going to skip them. And again, we let them go on like 2 blocks and then they come home. They're not going all over the neighborhood by themselves, but we do view it as a great opportunity, an excuse to interact with our neighbors. Same reason we pass out candy is it's just an excuse to rub shoulders with those on our street and in our neighborhood. And we want to get to know them. We want to reach them with the gospel. So is there a way you could participate or celebrate Halloween that you'd go full bore into kind of the demonic, violent, of course, with horror movies and all that stuff? And I'd say that's not good for a Christian because Satan is very real and we don't want to dabble in any of that stuff. But my kid dressing up as Spider-Man and getting a few candies from the neighbors, I don't view as celebrating anything like that.
What about Batman?
Well, Batman's a little dark.
Okay.
Gotham is a little dark, but
Good.
Peter Parker, a little more innocent. But yeah, so I mean, that's what we do. But as the question asker said, I would probably be one of those people that's a little bit indifferent in the sense that I'm kind of worn out from like the debates about this. Like, if it didn't exist and my kids didn't trick or treat, we would not care, whatever. But I'm not. It's not a passion point for me either way.
I think it's wise to get educated on the stuff, research the history of things. I think if you do research the history of that time of year, you're going to find a number of things. There's certainly ways it's been appropriated for wickedness historically, but there's also, again, one of the great moments in the history of the church, Reformation Day, that occurs on October 31st. So that's a day, again, we do the same thing, Ben. We kind of celebrate that. I don't know if we've ever taken our girls trick-or-treating, but we used to live in kind of a more suburban context where we'd get a lot of trick-or-treating. And so our kids would hand out candy, and we would just eat insane amounts of candy while talking about the Reformers and reading books in a nerdy way, Tyler. And in recent years, oh man, probably the last 10 years almost now, a friend of mine who's an elder at a church down in Oregon does like a Reformation conference and kind of like redeems that whole weekend as a thing. They do a bunch of stuff for kids and stuff. So our family's done that almost every year for like the last decade, gone to that. I've spoken at it, and our kids have like taken part in all the stuff. So, but yeah, I think it to me, it definitely firmly, in terms of what you're going to do that night, how you're going to, deal with this whole situation, is a matter of conscience for Christians. And I don't think we should. Certainly, there are things that you could do that people do. I mean, I used to live for 3 years when I was out in the Boston area at seminary. One of the nearest towns to the seminary was Salem, Massachusetts, and so you did not go out on the weekend of Halloween during that time, just because Salem, Mass, it became like, I mean, it was like Jerusalem at the Passover. It was like, there's just like traffic was crazy on all the highways going to Salem. And so there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in Salem, Mass during Halloween, at least when we lived out there. And so certainly all the themes of, you just drive by houses that have the death and the graveyards and the wicked craziness. And so Satan is real, as you said. Spiritual warfare, these things are real. And so yeah, in that sense, I think that would be, if you were going to engage Halloween in a way that is, like, hey, let's get together and do a Ouija board thing and like go to town on this. I think if you were going to do that and visit the palm readers and stuff, like,
do you guys want to do that?
Yeah, so I think if you were going to lean into that kind of stuff, that would be where it moved beyond conscience to like, foolishness and potentially sin at times, depending on what the context was. But I think, I think it's a total matter of conscience. We get this question every year on the To Be the Church podcast. And I've always meant to like, I wrote a blog about that or something. It's just like, you can find stuff that's written that's
we
solid.
We should talk
from a
about
Christian
horror movies and Christians. Have we ever talked about that on the podcast?
No. That'd be a good one though.
One thought is Mike Cosper has a book about like how different movies and TV shows like echo the gospel. And in the intro to that, he's addressing the question from like a media standpoint, but I think it applies to even, the matters of conscience issues like Halloween. And he's like, two errors that people make is one is to be like the over anxious teenager. It's always asking the question, like, how far is too far? Like, where's the line? Let me get right there. Let me like get as close to that line as I can without crossing it as a Christian. And like that's one fallacy. And then on the other one, he calls the church lady. And it's like, he uses that because like the Dana Carvey SNL, like that church lady, but it's like the person who like finds their identity in the things that they're against, and specifically the matters of conscience issues that they decide to plant their flag in, and then judge the people around them for feeling different about that. And so I think that's an important thing, because my family, we let our kids go trick-or-treating. Like, we do say like, hey, you're not going to be anything, like you're not going to either like be anything or watch anything or whatever that's like dark or evil or anything like that. I think like the darkest thing that like we've ever let our kid be is like a Power Ranger. And so it's like, and that was because we found a free costume that actually fit our
just like
ginormous
just like
6-year-old.
on the street.
No, it was like at like a school, like at a school, like a
Lost and Found.
No, what are those called? Like an exchange
rummage
thing.
sale.
Like you could bring your own thing, and like it's like a kind of like for families, whatever. So anyway, but I can get into the mindset, like if I'm not careful, of being like, people who just like
of judging the church lady.
Yeah,
being a church lady,
being a church lady of the church lady, right? And so, but I and so like noticing that, be like, okay, like that's not the point here. That's not the goal. Gavin Ortlund talks about it in his book, Finding the Right Hills to Die On, about like when we choose matters of conscience issues to die on as those hills, that like what we're doing is, like breaking unity in the church, like and stuff like that. So anyway, I just think that's an interesting way of looking at it too. And yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of different church traditions have a lot of different feelings about this. And so like you meet some people who are like, my dad is a like has been a pastor my whole life, and we fully celebrated Halloween like in a whatever way. And then you find other people, and maybe like the question asker here, where it's just like, oh, like for everyone in our church, this was just straight no, like not a chance, you know? And so, yeah, it is interesting.
And you also see, I mean, I've seen articles, blogs out there this time of year at Christian sites that I trust of like somebody who had a real history in witchcraft and the demonic and the occult, and they came out of that, and it was like, and they were like talking about the way that day of the year was appropriated in that world, and just all the things, you know, connected with it. And I don't have any reason to believe none of that is true. Like, you know, I'm sure that, you know, is a night that, and everything surrounding it, and with some of the historical stuff related to that, could be a really dark deal for sure. But then, and so with that person's specific conscience, like, you know, I would say, yeah, definitely don't like dabble, you know, in those kind of things or whatever else. But yeah, there's an importance to I like the thing you said about the church lady thing and the different sides of things, because in all matters of conscience, you know, there's going to be the temptation to try to bind the conscience of others, and or vice versa, to loosen the conscience of others, right? And to go, no, you're making a bit too big a deal, or whatever. And so I just think as Christians in community, we got to be clear on that and stuff. And so, you know, like here at the church, we don't do like a Reformation thing, but we'll do the trunk or treat event, you know, for our Discovery kids or whatever. And you know, kind of like, that's sort of our version of like the modern day harvest party. Remember the harvest parties? Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Have I ever told you guys about the time I accidentally like ended up at like a witchcraft party?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. So it was like 5 years ago. And I'm guessing it was 5 years ago. But we were here, living here. And it was the night of like that like super, super rare blood moon, where it was like the eclipse and something like that, where the moon just goes straight up red, you know? And Katie and I happened to have childcare that night, and we're like where would be a cool place to like watch this like phenomenon that like doesn't exist like except for every few hundred years or whatever. And so we ended up going to the Vista House, which is in the gorge, and it's like high on the ledge, and you can like, it's like perfect for viewing stars, and like you can look, if I remember right, you can look like to the west and see Portland, but then like look to the east, see the gorge, and look up, and it's just like amazing. So we go there on that night, and we like packed a picnic, and it was like going to be fun. And usually when you go to the Vista House, there's like 3 cars there. And as we're pulling up, it's just like there's so many cars there. And we're like, a bunch of people must have the same idea we did. And so like we like get out there, and we set our picnic blanket out, and there's a bunch of people, and it's like, oh, they're all here to watch the blood moon, you know, whatever. We set a blanket out, get our, you know, our snacks out or whatever for our picnic. And as like the moon starts to change colors, like people around us start like dancing. And we're like, this is weird. And it was like, it kind of like looked like a Bethel service for a minute. But anyway, like it kind of gets going. And then there's like it's like there's a group of people over here that's like kind of like chanting, and then like more people are chanting, and then like we start like noticing the clothes of the people that are out there, and it's like definitely some like demonic like stuff on their shirts, and you know, stuff like that. And it was just like, it was like in the midst of it that we realized like, oh,
yeah.
Like, and it wasn't like a you had to pay to get in or any, it wasn't like a you know, like a full on like event, but it was just like a bunch of like witchcraft people, witches, I guess, I don't know, warlocks, I don't know.
Yeah.
Little
dungeons, little dragons.
I guess, I don't know. But and so we were like, yeah, let's go home.
Dude, I've never heard that one. That's great. Oh,
definitely a date night to remember, you know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right, well, happy October 31st in a couple days. I didn't want to say happy Halloween. Anyway, yeah, I doubt this has been helpful. But yeah, we'll see you next week.